Did he have a good sense of humor?
I guess you could say he had a weird sense of humor.
What do you mean by weird?
John has a kind of sick sense of humor. I mean, he finds stuff interesting or amusing that other people don't.
Even back then?
Oh, yeah.
Give me an example.
Well, he liked death, and he was interested in death, okay? Who's interested in death? I mean, like, what would we do? Who wants to go walk through a graveyard, you know? So we'd go walk through the graveyards, and we'd talk about, you know, the dead people. What do they look like now? You know, they were under the ground, and, you know, when were they born? What were their lives like? And talk all about death and stuff.
This is when you're first meeting, or after a period of time?
I couldn't say.
But he was fascinated by death.
Mm-hmm.
And he discussed murder?
Mm-hmm.
Would you expand on that, please?
Oh, yes. This is the good part. Well, before I do the good part, let's do the next to the most good part.
Okay.
This is the part about Lee Bonadies Hainline, who wound up to be one of his attributed victims. And I would like to comment that in one of his letters here to me, which she was never connected legally to him, there was never a body found. And he said, and I said, you know, John, you know, I don't know about Place and Jessup, but what the hell, you know, I have a feeling you killed Lee Bonadies, you know, and what about that, you know, and some stuff that he told me. He said, Lee was a trip. And his statement in his letter, which you don't realize what he's saying, but he says, you fuck with the bull, you get the horn.
That's talking to him currently.
Yeah, about her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let's flash back to what. And we're over at his house, out in his yard, you know, nature boy as usual, and just hanging around, t-shirts and shorts and, you know, nature boy as usual. And he shows me Lee's house, and her bedroom is on the second story, and her bedroom window is facing toward the Schaefer house. And when I called those damn cops before I even contacted Schaefer, I said, did any of his victims live on his street house next to him? No. And if they would have told me, I probably never would have contacted him. They would have told me Lee Bonadies wound up dead, and she lived next to him. I would have said, no, I don't think I'll contact him. But I did. They could have told me that. Anyway. Okay, so here's her window, and he says, this girl, she's driving me crazy. And she strips in front of the window for me. And she's trying to get me excited, you know. And his demeanor about telling me about this was angry. And anger. And that was the distinguishing tag to his sexuality. And that was that arousal was entwined with anger. Arousal was entwined with anger, just inevitably. And that she was doing this to provoke him. She was doing this not unbeknownst, but deliberately. Flaunting her naked body at him. Okay. And I remember, there's a lot of stuff we did that I don't remember. There's a few little things begin to come back in this past year, but most of it I don't remember at all. But the things that I do remember stick right out.
So he would...
And I remember his demeanor as he was telling me about this woman that undressed for him. And I noticed it, you know. It was real something you would notice.
Hostility?
It was queer, you know. It was something you hadn't seen before. Okay?
Another side of it.
Yeah, you'd never seen in anyone. Noticed it. Okay? It was a weird, queer quality. And the other weird, queer quality was between him and his mother.
What's that?
A seductive, physically dancing cheek to cheek, totally unembarrassed. And I'm there. And again, I'm seeing something I've never seen before. And the quality of it stands out.
Let's talk for a moment, then we'll come back to this, but let's talk for a moment about Lee. As far as he said, she undresses for me.
At me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did he make any other comments about her?
Well, I can't quote him because it might be inaccurate. I don't know what he said exactly. I'm telling you about his demeanor. Now, when we get to the really good part, this gets much more pronounced. But this is just the little first part with Lee, okay? Now, what happened to Lee eventually was what all this story about John Schaefer was found with all the jewelry of dead and missing girls in his mother's... All that jewelry was Lee's.
I see.
And their so-called cop technique for tying it to all the other girls was to take it and spread it out and then call in the mothers of the victims and say, does any of this look like stuff your daughter had? Well, it was junk in the first place, nondescript junk. And then a mother would say, oh yeah, that's something she had. Now, isn't that kind of backward?
But it belongs to Lee.
It was all Lee's, according to Schaefer anyway, that he had a box of jewelry that was Lee's. And that Lee gave him this box because she was a junkie, and she kept borrowing money from him to get her drugs. And he got tired of it, and she said, no, please give me money. I'll give you these jewelry to hold.
That's his story.
His story of how he became in possession of Lee's box of jewelry. Okay.
But the police contend that it belonged to these other victims as well.
Yeah, but their procedure was corrupt on the face of it.